You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. I will introduce my guest to you shortly, but let's go listen to a number of people who had some very interesting things to say about the Office of Special Prosecutor when he began to, as it were, crack the whip, and issues about his capacity to operate fully came to the fore in the course of the week. Listen to this.
Once you don't have a board in place, you don't have the technical expertise, you're not likely to get approval for the kind of budgets that allow heavy investment, because there's likely to be a cap on what you can do by yourself. It has serious implications on the speed with which the Special Prosecutor's Office can deliver on its mandate. And that office is becoming even much more relevant given the number of incidents that have come up and the public has raised their voices, and there's an interest being taken on. But those cases to be investigated in the short term, and for the Special Prosecutor to come back with feedback to update the public, and therefore to move the process forward to, let's say, prosecution and what have you, the board ought to be in place. 9 months is too many months gone quiet, especially when we know that the various agencies have submitted some name already.
Yes. He's frozen the assets of Sir John. I'm bound to say he has done very well. But I think that he also, he has not done as much as I expected. Because if the board was not being constituted, he should have come out. So we also want to tell him that, look, next time he should be more forthright. Because he's supposed to be independent. So if he doesn't have the board and he's quiet about it, I mean, it's not a good thing. Mr. Kiti Ejabe was earning a living as a private legal practitioner. I don't expect that he will be cozy with government. If your board is not being constituted, come out. Okay? So yes, I'm very excited that he's losing the assets of Sir John. But in the same breath, I'm not happy at all that he kept mute whilst his board was not constituted.
I am puzzled by the whole issue of the board, because we submitted the nominee for the anti-corruption organizations in March, and I know that all the agencies has also submitted their nominations. So I don't understand why just the inauguration is becoming a problem. It would definitely be a big problem for the OSP, because the way the governance architecture is designed, for him to get in senior officers, directors, and so on, he needs the advice of the board. And without that, they cannot legitimately sort of work. So I really, it's a puzzle to me why this has dragged on. I'll really urge and appeal to government to really just, within a few days, just get this inauguration done so that he can get on with his work.
Some will say these are the very basics for the office to function. But after all these years, the issue about whether we are really serious about the fight against corruption comes up. Are we really serious about it?
I think that's the question, and the right question to ask, because, we cannot keep making these statements that the OSP is one of our key interventions for fighting corruption, and yet our actions don't speak loud enough that we want to make that institution work. So I really think that this is not good, even in terms of the resources. Yes, I know that the situation is very difficult for the finance ministry and everyone, but the OSP's mandate, and from a preventive point of view, even in recovering assets of proceeds of crime, I think it's an investment that the government have to make, so that even if money is tight, the OSP has to be prioritized in the way in which monies are released. It's not particularly because he has to do a lot of heavy lifting at the beginning, because the office is now being set up. He needs his resources very early. If he's released in this way, he cannot really operate.
We in civil society or his citizens are not putting enough pressure on the president to do what he's expected to do. Some of us have talked about it on air, but we need the anti-corruption and other institutions to come out with press releases calling on the president to appoint the board. My checks have shown that the president said, oh, those who are there should continue. But you haven't made that statement publicly. You need to officially announce that they should go ahead and even inaugurate them again. Besides, some of the people on the board are no longer with their institutions. They were representing their institutions and they have proceeded on retirement. So you need to ask them to replace those people. And if those people are coming in, they need to be inaugurated and even to declare their assets. So much as you may want to blame citizens, the president has a list of institutions that is required by law to appoint boards of directors and inaugurate them. Why is he not doing it?
Right, so you've been listening to Martin Pebu, Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante, Vitus Azim, and Adam Senanu on the absence of a board for the OSP, as well as the lack of equipment and facility for it to be able to work and do the work the way he feels, or that office feels, is important. The OSP made a request for the approval of 1 billion Ghana cedis. That's the budget it sought to set up the office, build a cybersecurity and forensic lab, and cells to keep suspects, and also purchase other logistics. As we understand, the Ministry of Finance committed only about 170 million, out of which only 10 million has been released. Only 10 million has been released. People are asking questions if we can have as much as 25 million and a whole lot more even ahead. You know, money in excess of 70 million to commit to building a cathedral, which we said is for the churches to do. Why not equipped to fight the corruption? So people are asking the question. The president, in his campaign, said that doing this office was a very important way to fight corruption. So he made a promise. And when he came into office, followed it up quickly. The law was passed. So why must it take CSOs and other individuals to put pressure on him to make the institution he believes will fight corruption, because he came to fight corruption, to work? Some just don't understand how that works. Okay, maybe my guests who are joining me now may have some answers to that. Mary Awalana Ada is Programs Manager, Ghana Integrity Initiative. Professor Kojo Appiah is with the School of Law, University of Ghana. And here in the studio is Joseph Dindiok Penka, former Deputy Attorney General and Minister for Justice. We'll also be joined by Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, MP for North Tongue and Ranking Member, Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament. Thank you very much. Now, Mary, that's the question I really ask. Why should it be the job of anybody to pressurize a president that made this the most important tool to fight corruption, campaigned on it, and told the whole world that I promise, I have delivered, and I'm fighting corruption for you? Why should anybody be the one to pressurize him to make it functional?
Thank you very much, Samson. Let me say good morning to your viewers and also the other panelists. That is the million-dollar question we should be asking the president. It is interesting, somehow mind-boggling, that for a president who decided that our current circumstances and the Constitution, the best way to go was for the establishment of an office that will promote the fight against corruption. And as quickly as 2017, ensured that that box was ticked and started work. Somehow things didn't go well. But then in his second term, he has appointed somebody who has shown that he is committed to fight corruption. So you ask yourself, what at all is the serious stuff that we need to ensure that we constitute the board? 9 months after the person has taken office. And let's say that about 3 months after the list for the various institutions that are supposed to constitute the OSP board have been submitted to the chief of staff. After several reminders have been sent, let's be very frank and say that it is no more interesting at all. We should call a spade and say that our president, even though he has promised to fight corruption, has not shown that significantly per his actions when it comes to the office of the special prosecutor. I say so because the composition of the board is such that it is institutional. And so the institutions present the list, and the list is submitted to the presidency so that these people are sworn in to take charge of the office. And I'm saying that the commitment is not being shown by action, because if this gentleman is supposed to work, the board should give him strategic guidance and direction. Again, per his act, the board is supposed to ensure that they advise him on recruitment, particularly of certain staff. And I was saying on another Joy platform that I have personally been to that office on 2-3 occasions. And on the beautiful building he has been assigned, which is true, 9th-floor building, it is just the 9th floor that is being is fit for purpose for now, where they are using. The other floors are supposed to be retrofitted for his purposes. He does not have the staff to work with. How on earth can we say that in such an instance, this person with just a few people he is working with can execute the mandate for which we have given him? It is surprising that this is happening, and it's not pleasurable at all to speak to, because there is nothing. It's not like you are picking from a list of people and you need to select to please people and make others happy, or the fear of not making others happy. That is not the case. This is a very straightforward matter. Institutions have presented their list. Whether you like them or not, these institutions have presented as the mandate of the act is saying. They have sent the list. Why won't you inaugurate them to carry on with their work? And if they do not do, then we come back to say that then it is the board which is not functioning well. But in this case, the challenge is with the presidency. And the $1 million question is for the president to answer to, because I do not see the hindrance whatsoever. And the special prosecutor is currently showing that he would do the work.
Even in such circumstances, would you say it is fair, the accusation that this is a testament that the president is only paying lip service to this fight and nothing more?
Something I would say that in some instances he has done something, and the analysis would show that he has done something. By even setting up the office, he has ticked that box. He indicated he has been the president who has provided more resources to the institutions. And Shrike, for instance, has mentioned in the past that this is true per the trend. Unfortunately, fighting corruption goes beyond just giving a little money. When people want 1 billion, you give them 170 million. It is not commitment enough. When the president said he was going to fight corruption, the people of Ghana trusted him on those promises he made per his campaign. And we voted for him on that. And so the mantra, seriously, is just too much. Talking. And the action is not showing.
Well, you say
that somebody wants to show action. Let us say that. So when people say, to conclude, when people say that the president is talking without matching the talk with action, in a lot of instances, perhaps maybe more than half of it, it is the case.
All right. You say the government has given 170 million instead of the 1 billion that the OSP sought. The fact is that the government has committed 170. It hasn't given 170. It has given only 10 million. Now
yes,
the question,
even the 10 million, even the 10 million from my church, I do not think from January to June they have received 10 million.
Okay.
I may be proved wrong, but they have not received that 10 million as an office. If that is not correct, perhaps they can correct that impression. And we are talking about 6 months into the year, and this office needs to start work. We know for a fact, just like I
well, what we know is that 10 million has been released by the ministry. So if they have not, as it were, secured that money yet, then that would be another issue. But the next question is this. We understand that the OSP feels that the new OSP feels that he needs to build a separate, independent cybersecurity and forensic laboratory. He's come under, some challenge where others say, well, others have these laboratories already. You should just, try and make do with what the police may have, what may be is it the Bank of Ghana somewhere, that institution within the FIC also has. The Financial Intelligence Unit may also have. The OSP's justification, we have heard from elsewhere, from sources within the OSP, is that, look, we need to have an independent lab. We don't want to mix up with any other people because we see how ineffective things are going on. For example, in the Ejenim Boateng Ejei situation, where his over 440 million was frozen. Anytime money hit his account, within the very short time that he was getting all these monies that were deemed to be, corrupt money, anytime his bank money hit his bank account in the hundreds of thousands of dollars into his accounts, the banks will give the necessary alert because they are required by law to alert the Financial Intelligence Unit. They will give the necessary alert, but it looks like people were not taking action. And they feel that they want to be independent in this. They don't want to use people's things where people will see the things they do and might alert, criminal suspects to get away. Do you think it is a fair thing to ask for, that they should be giving a new one altogether, independent from the one or two that is in the country already?
Something. If we want to fight corruption, then we must show some seriousness. This is what the gentleman says he needs. And I couldn't agree more, particularly when we know that in the past, things have not happened right. The gentleman you referenced, we know that the assets that were frozen got unfrozen. And if the OSP has his own logistics to track some of these, I believe this wouldn't have happened. And so if he says he needs an independent forensic lab, let the people of Ghana invest in this. Fighting corruption is an expensive venture. But let us remember that the monies we lose yearly to corruption is so huge that what we should be investing in ensuring that we don't lose those monies would be just a peanut compared to what we are losing already when we look at the monies that are being drained out of the national kitty due to corruption. And so if you say that they want a forensic lab, I believe it is not too much to ask. And as a people, if we believe that we are prioritizing the fight against corruption, then it is not wrong that we invest in this to ensure that he tackles the monster of corruption going forward.
Right.
Again, let me say, admittedly, our resources are not in a good place for now. But that does not mean that his request is not valid. And let's also go back to compare what is the existing relationship between these anti-corruption and accountability agencies. Is it that rosy? Have they had a relationship where you know for sure that some of these things can happen on a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week basis where every information is flowing. We know that interagency collaboration has not been the best in this country. And so let's not deceive ourselves that, oh, because the Bank of Ghana has, you would have access to it, it will work like clockwork. I don't believe that is what would happen. So if what he needs to operationalize the office is given to him, then he would have no reason to justify failure.
Okay.
So let's commit.
All right.
We are committed to ensure that we do this.
However, very final question to you. However, you are the anti-corruption forefront in the NGO space. Are happy that despite the constraints, the OSP is beginning to show that it is ready to fight the people who are plundering the states, right?
Certainly, we are beginning to see some action. And the action that is being exhibited by the OSP only goes to show that if we give him the needed support and we give him the needed logistics, something will come out of this struggle. And
right.
I believe the trust of the people would then be regained, because it is only when we tackle this monster and tackle those who want to take this nation for a ride, ensuring that they enrich themselves, their cronies, and then those politically exposed persons around them. If we tackle this monster holistically, we would be making some significant inroads. But we need to support him, and we need to also ensure that we fight corruption by reporting and saying something when we see something going wrong.
Thank you very much. Mary Awalana Ada is Programs Manager, Ghana Integrity Initiative. And we needed to deal with her and so let her go because she has some pressing matter to attend to right now. Thank you very much indeed. Professor Kojo Appiah-Jaitua of the School of Law, University of Ghana, is still with us online. And also here in the studio is Joseph Dindiok Penka, who is former Deputy Attorney General and Minister for Justice. So before we go to Professor Appiah-Jaitua, maybe we should hear from you. You may know better than we do because you are in government, so to speak. Yes, so what's going on? Is the president not as interested as he was in a hurry to sign the law into the bill into law and all that 9 months after he got into office?
Thanks,
no board.
Samson. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thanks to my co-panelists on the program. And good morning to our viewers. First of all, Samson, let's situate whatever arguments we are making with respect to the office of the Special Prosecutor within a certain context, and then we'll get it right. Now, it is agreeable, and there's no debate about it, that as part of his campaign message to Ghanaians, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo had promised that he was going to ensure that he decoupled this particular function of the Office of Attorney General from that office and cede it to the Office of Special Prosecutor to ensure that the fight against corruption in our country is taken to another level. That is not in debate at all. And we all applauded that. Yes. Everybody was happy because we know, and it has been confessed even by attorney generals, that the attorneys general, that it is almost impossible for a party person in that office to prosecute their own. You look at the person in the face that you sit together all the time to take decisions about your party and all that. You look at the person in the face. And so if you look at the memorandum that accompanied the bill itself, it states this very clearly, the policy rationale behind why the Office of the Special Prosecutor was necessary now than ever before. Because right from 92, we found that if you look at political think tanks and other groups, political interest groups and all that, they've all come to the conclusion that there's no debate about it. There is the need for us to have this particular office and have it functioning so that we can take the fight against corruption and corruption-related offenses to another level. Samson, again, you talked about the commitment. Let me first state that when we came into office and His Excellency the President mandated the Office of Attorney General to craft this bill in a manner that it will not sin against Article 88 and all that, it was done with expedition. You remember, I recall that I stated on this platform that I was privileged to lead a delegation to the US to study their system, right, which is ad hoc anyway, and see how we could replicate that in a better form by having a permanent office, which has culminated in this office that all of us have commended. Now, to the substantive matter as to whether or not the office has been resourced and given what it needs to be able to carry out its mandate as required by the Act. Now, first, let me state that when the Venerable Martin Alamisi Amidu came into office, he was given a small place, and he complained time and again that the space was too small. And quite clearly, I agreed with him that the space was too small for him to be able to operate and carry out his mandate well. So what did His Excellency the President do? You recall again that another state institution that had put up a very magnificent edifice for its office accommodation and etc. had to cede it to the Office of the Special Prosecutor. What does that tell you? Priority. Because that other state institution is in a small accommodation that is not good enough for its status and is not able to accommodate all its staff. They spend so much to put up that magnificent edifice you see. And then His Excellency the President himself comes in and says that, look, where you are for now, that particular state institution, and I'm not afraid of stating it, the GET fund, where you are for now is good for you, so remain there for some time. That building you put up to move in, we're going to give that to the Special Prosecutor.
But I'm sure that the facts as we know them, it's not that the entire building is for the Special Prosecutor.
No.
They are supposed to use some of
I mean, of course, you know that, I mean, what are they going to do with all that?
And Martin Amidu's argument at the time, if I remember
he said
correctly,
was
that he didn't want to live
with any other institution
in a premises where he would share with some other institutions.
Yes, right. that was his argument. But the point I'm making is that what has been given to the Special Prosecutor is enough. The accommodation is enough to accommodate the office and then the staff.
That's right.
So that's another step we ought to commend. Now, the other step is equipping the office and then recruiting staff.
That's right.
Which started under the old OSP. And of course, he could not complete it before he tendered in his resignation until the appointment of Kisi Ajebe.
He barely started the recruitment.
He barely started it, yes. They advertised. But before the interviews could be conducted and due diligence done for them to be recruited, he left office. Again, let me state this. When Kisi Ajebe was appointed OSP, I sat on this platform and poured out all the accolades on him. And I said, as I knew him as a schoolmate in Legon, he was very much capable and competent to handle that job. There were questions about age. You recall. Today, by some of the moves that have been made so far, some of us feel vindicated. And we think that, given the support, he will take the fight against corruption to another level. I am not in any doubt at all.
Is it not too early to be feeling vindicated?
Yesterday I had a conversation with another friend, and he said a similar thing as you are raising, that it was too early to start celebrating the success of the Office of Special Prosecutor as occupied by Kisi Ajebe. And I said that among my people, that chick that will grow to become a big cock is known immediately it is hatched. You know, and the one that will become a weakling is also known immediately it is hatched.
Right. So they've started commendable work. The question now is the needed finances. The board 9 months on is not in. The capacity they need, they can't have it.
Let me just state again that the conclusions that I had from the panelists and then your good self may be a little erroneous because it hasn't been 9 months. It has been 9 months since he went into office, but it hasn't been 9 months since the board expired. And if you recall, one of the anti-corruption agencies head stated,
Vitus
yes, he stated that they presented the name in March.
No, but Mary actually said that everything was ready 3 months ago.
Yes. So assuming that it was ready 3 months ago, we could not stretch it to 9 months ago, So yes, the Office of Special Prosecutor needs the board now than ever before, because as rightly pointed out, without the board, he's unable to take major decisions, because he's only able to take administrative decisions that confine him to his limit as far as spending is concerned and etc. But again, remember that this is a very sensitive state institution, and after the other agencies have appointed their representatives as mandated by the Act, the Office of the President is also supposed to appoint some people in addition to, so that the whole board will be properly constituted. And remember that the President's office has to also be cautious and careful to appoint people of high integrity and moral standing who will be able to assist the Office of Special Prosecutor to carry out the mandate as mandated by the Act. If you rush to appoint people who go there and have questions to answer, then it will defeat the very purpose for which you are supposed to do that. You may say that yes, there's undue delay, but sometimes it is done because you need to do due diligence to clear those who are supposed to be appointed to such positions because of the sensitive nature of that particular mandate that you're supposed to carry out as an appointee of government. So it is better to take your time, do due diligence, and appoint these people than rush and appoint people who will have questions to answer, and then another round of debate will begin, so that we'll have an unending piece of debate among ourselves. So I will say that yes, there may have been some delay in the appointments, but it is for due diligence to be conducted, and I know sooner than later the board will be inaugurated and this will become history, so that they can assist the special prosecutor to carry out his mandate. You also spoke about finance.
We take this as the official response.
Oh, sooner than later.
That it is because of the sensitive nature of the office.
Yes. There need to be a lot of...
And they need to be careful who to appoint.
Yes.
But the law has listed those who will come onto the board already.
Yes, but I'm saying that...
this institution brings this institution brings, and then there will be a chairperson.
Yes, but that's why I'm saying that there are a number of them supposed to be appointed by the Office of the President. The President is mandated to appoint some.
Right.
Yes, the state is not only the anti-corruption institutions and other state institutions. You recall that, for example, we have a rep from IOCO, we have a rep from the Office of those who are mandated to look at drug regulations in this particular country, the police service, they are represented, and etc. So those institutions, very easy to present their names because they have, and remember that even also when those institutions are presented their names, there has to be some security checks on their backgrounds to ascertain whether or not they have any questions.
I think we should go to the question of the funding.
Yes, I'm moving there. So now to the question of funding, something again, I have been in Parliament. I've been privileged to be in Parliament for 4 years.
I'm trying to rake up the law, but because as far as I know, I think there's none that the President appoints.
The President is supposed to appoint. I can tell you for sure.
Okay,
because
so let me bring up the law and then we'll look at the particular portion. Okay,
so,
go ahead.
So the funding aspect, you see, you may be talking about how much has been released and etc. But I don't know of any state institution, as far as I've been in Parliament for 4 years, that requested for a particular amount of money and was given everything. I don't know of any such state institution, because we are living within limited resources that are available in the national kitty for distribution to the various agencies and state institutions. So in the midst of constraints, you have to re-engineer it in a manner that it will distribute to the various agencies so that it does not still affect the management of the... I remember that the Ministry of Finance is the one mandated to carry out this particular aspect of our life. So as an agency responsible for this, the ministry is mindful of the fact that it has a certain envelope, and within that envelope has to spend. It cannot spend outside of that. So if the ministry has 10 cities to spend and it has to distribute it among all state institutions, and OSP is giving 170 million, and 10 million of that money has been released. Subsequently, the other money will be released based on request placed and availability of funding, because the ministry doesn't have an ending funding. It may be unfortunate that they are not resourced enough, but as time evolves, I know for sure that we will meet these things. And when we have fully established the various structures, okay, the prosecutorial, the investigative, and asset recovery aspects, you know that they are all departments within the Office of Special Prosecutor. You have those who will do the investigations, those who will do the prosecution, and those who will do the assets recovery. These are all supposed to be under the Office of Special Prosecutor. So when we have finally established all these things, the yearly budgetary allocation definitely will come down, because the demand for more money based on staff recruitment, office equipment, staff salary, and etc. will also what? Reduce. But for a start, you have this huge demand, which you know for sure that it is impossible, okay, to give all such money at a go to the entity because of competing demands in other equally important departments of state. So yes, the funding has not been adequate, but has been very serious effort on the part of government by way of commitment, getting the office allocation and not etc. And the law itself even coming into effect and force and the appointment of the officer to be in charge. That mandate alone, and by what the office is doing now, having arraigned a number of individuals before court,
all right,
and actually setting up others again for investigation and prosecution, we ought to commend and say there is a step forward,
right,
so that we can engineer.
I think that's not in doubt. Many are commending the OSP already for those steps. The Section 5 talks about those to be sort of appointed, but if you look at it in real terms, it is a selection, 7 of all, by the various institutions that have been named, a representative from the Ghana Police Service of a certain rank, a representative of the IOCO of a certain rank, a representative of the Financial Intelligence Center of a certain rank, a representative of SHRAJ, one person with a background in intelligence, not below the rank of a director nominated by the minister responsible for national security. There's one person who is a female representing the anti-corruption civil society organization, you know, and then they, together with the OSP and the deputy, will form the board. But of course, the law will say the president will do this appointment in pursuant to Article 70 of the Act. But in actual sense, they are sort of, if you like, a group of people coming from various institutions outside the OSP. Sorry, let me go to Professor Kojura Piejetua now. Prof, what do you make of the concerns that are being raised about the funding, the need to set up independent and separate forensic laboratory, create a cell, if you like, call it a holding cell or whatever it is, and the questioning of the board as well? What do you have to say?
Thank you, Samson, for the opportunity to be with the discussion this morning. So I think that having listened to the discussions and the comments made, my view on the subject is that we should see corruption as a very complex phenomenon, and we should identify the beneficiaries and the victims when corruption is in place. We have international actors that benefit from corruption, and we have local actors, we have government institutions, and the seat of government itself all being part of the stakeholders when we are talking about the subject matter of corruption. But if corruption would thrive, it's about how the government is properly positioned and the government's commitment to fighting corruption that to make all the difference. Because in a lot of ways, government itself is also a beneficiary of corruption. Sometimes it pays lip service to fighting corruption. So the approach may be different in different jurisdictions or in different ways. In the particular context of Ghana, we see a situation where we have shown the commitment to fight corruption in word and in the law, but in action, it seems to be something different. And because corruption is complex and interconnected, it's connected to the economy, it's connected to social status, it's connected to governance. It is a harder-headed problem that needs to be tackled from a perspective that will ensure that we're able to see the results. It is not just the laws that will make the difference, but at the end of the day, what is the substantive results that we can see on the ground? We have seen how the government's record on corruption has come down. Looking at the integrity, the corruption watch annual reports that they give. And that tells you that the corruption fight is being waged simply by way of the laws that we have in place. And the laws are not working, or they are not being allowed to work. And so that is what we have, the situation we have now.
You see, yeah, Professor Bafo Ajimendia, Chief Executive of the Officer of the John Kufuor Foundation, have joined others expressing a lot of concern, and they speak about worsening corruption. And therefore, this is an organization that you need to give priority attention to and not give any excuses. If the board, the term of the board is to expire, you don't wait for it to expire and then so many months later, you now are constituting the team. That should be done in anticipation. We said a while ago that from what we know from the finance ministry, it does appear that it's 10 million out of the 170 million committed to the institution's budget has been released. But my information now, very credible source, is that it's actually 6 million and not 10 million, even though they asked for 1 billion. It's 6 million, and even that 6 million has not been given, it's not with them yet.
Yes, so that is the point. So we can count a slew of laws that are supposed to deal with corruption from different perspectives. We have criminal law, specifically within the Criminal and Other Offences Act. We have most recently the most beautiful anti-corruption law we can talk about, probably in the whole world, the OSP office. And we know the constraints that have been put in the way of the office. So it doesn't prove to me, and of course, all well-meaning people, that we are serious about fighting corruption. It's a way of doing some public relations gimmick that we are fighting it, but at the end of the day, we are not. Because corruption keeps governments going. And I'm not saying that the government as a whole is corrupt, but there are some actors within the system. The clientelism is very high. And we have some sort of a new patrimonial system where we have a person at the top as a high figure, and people are feeding off this person consciously or unconsciously without the connivance of the person in power. But because the structures have been weakened and compliance has been low and implementation is poor, these things happen sometimes on the blind side of the president and some of his people. We know, for example, that the president has been declaring his assets, but a whole number of ministers have not been doing that. And so what does that tell you? It tells us that there's some weaknesses in the system that are being exploited. We can look at the case of the Ajay Boatin example. So at the end of the day, we should look at the institutions, the structures, the personnel, and the society's perception and appreciation, and whether they trust such an office to work. Because at the end of the day, the society that is going to give the information to the institution to be able to then fish out and investigate and prosecute the people. If the trust with the society is not there, we have a problem. The personnel, we can have the personnel, but if that person is not committed, we are seeing good signs that Mr. Kisejabin will work, will make the thing work, will make the office work. So personnel leadership is critical. But at the end of the day, the stumbling blocks put in the way of Mr. Martin Amidu should not be forgotten. The fact that there will be other investigations going on alongside this reports that a complaint has been issued to him. And this on the side investigation team come up with this report before that of the office of the OSP, the OSP, and then we see a situation where it will compromise the ability of the OSP to come up with its own findings.
So, Prof, let's move on. Let's move away from Martin. And Martin had his own issues, including that he didn't want to share with whatever. But we understand that the new building now, that whole edifice, is for this, dedicated to the OSP's office. Now, for a president, like Penka just said, a president who has gone all this way to ensure that this beautiful edifice, is it 9-story or so, has been made available, and the institution that put it up has been deprived of its use. That sounds like priority. A president who set up this institution and then, appointed, quote unquote, his enemy, opponent, to be the foundation special prosecutor. All of that shows commitment. So if they need 1 billion and there's been a commitment of 170, and halfway into the year, only 6 million has been released, and even the 6 million has not hit the account, should the suspicion be that this is deliberate, intended to sort of muzzle them from being able to operate?
That is exactly my point. It is deliberate, and it is designed to ensure that the office will not function and function properly. Because if it is functioning properly, like I said, corruption is tied to governance. And governance, as one political scientist puts it, it's about self-interest. But it's about the level of self-interest that we're talking about. And also the institutions that are in place to check the self-interest or the execution of a self-interest agenda. So if we have a situation where in our current political system, corruption thrives because governance thrives on corruption, then those who are working with the government are benefiting from the corruption that is ongoing. And therefore, they will not make the system work, because if it works, then they are going to be exposed. If you look at the current situation, how much we lose through corruption, one statistics indicate that we lose $3 billion a year through corruption. The office needs 1 billion cedis to do its work, and we are going to save $3 billion a year. We are talking about how much we can get from e-levy and so on. Corruption can be, tackling corruption can be a major way of saving the country so much money. And corruption doesn't only affect governance or the economy. It affects crime, transnational organized crime. Corruption is a system on its own that people use to make profit, but it also aids in the commission of other crimes. So that is why it should be given priority attention more than any other activity that we see the government embarking on. Because at the end of the day, if it is properly set up and it is working, it's going to weed out the corrupt personnel and the corrupt systems that are taking place. And Ghana will be the better place for it.
Well, let's pretend for a moment that even the 6 million halfway into the year has been released. The 1 billion that he seeks as a budget to make his office a lot more, as it were, functional, is that not asking too much of a country whose economy is hit in the manner we are now after COVID and now Ukraine and, the usual, suspects when it comes to the economy that is suffering? Isn't 1 billion not too much? And if he's asking for a cyber security, and all of these things that he wants to build by himself for his office in that building, and the idea is that why don't you share with other people, interministerial or collaborative usage? Is that not fair to ask of him? Prof's line is frozen. I wish I had him immediately so he responds quickly. Then I get back to the studio. Professor PJ. Okay. Yes, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, the MP for Northtown, just joined us, ranking member Foreign Affairs Committee. Been on some campaigns for a while now, particularly checking the spending at the presidency from day one. That's been his pet subject. Now, how the president flies on,
luxury jets.
It says luxury jets. It's also an issue. And now he's beginning to also look at what he calls the unapproved spending for the cathedral. Interestingly, when he raises the issue, I see a certain propaganda that is the approach that is being taken. Because he's raising accountability, say, oh, you don't want a cathedral to be built. You are not a Christian. Come on. Yes.
It's not about
all right. So if you may take off from where I ask Prof, and when he comes back, he can also respond to that. We're in difficult times. Should we be dedicating $1 billion to build new structures like intelligence stuff when you can share, despite what we understand are the suspicions that for an OSP, it's good to have them independent stuff so that they don't share with the others whilst they are dealing with somebody. Then somebody in another office gets to know and they may give a tip off. And we know that there are people in security agencies that are compromised. And it's been said, very clear example, that but for compromise, the former head of the PPA could not have lodged all those monies, 40 million plus within 1 year, when his bank account had less than 40,000, and then within 3 years, he has set up a company. He has set up companies within only 3 months to give them contracts and managed to mobilize as much as 40 million plus into the accounts. And it looks like there are people who didn't help. The OSP wants to avoid all those things, but we don't have money.
Look, Samson, and good morning to you, to Honorable Penka, the panel, and our distinguished listeners and viewers across the globe. Only this week, Samson, I was invited to the Imani second Fiscal Recklessness Index report launch. And I want to commend them and commend Oxfam for financing the project. If you were in the hall at Tang Palace and you listened to the presentation, you saw the numbers, how much we are losing, you will be more supportive of the efforts of the Office of Special Prosecutor. This country is losing too much to corruption. The hemorrhage is just too much. Let me just read this extract from the Imani Fiscal Recklessness Report. It says, over the period from 2015 to 2020, a total of 13.9 billion cedis in financial irregularities, covering stores, procurement, cash, tax, payroll, rent, and contract irregularities were recorded. Cumulatively, the total financial irregularities represent about 3.64% of 2020 GDP and an average of 0.52% of yearly GDP over the analysis period. The highest financial irregularities occurred in 2018, 5.2 billion cedis, representing more than a third of the overall financial irregularities of the MDAs and double the average financial irregularities of MDAs. 13.9 billion. That's more than twice what is projected to be raised from e-levy. It's more than double what has been spent on free SHS so far. So if the Office of Special Prosecutor is asking for resources, we are losing too much. And you see, I've been looking at public financial management.
How many billions?
13.9 billion.
He needs just 1 billion.
Yes. So if we just plug the loopholes, and you see, this is how we stop things like this. And you see, if you look at the state of this economy, only this week, the CFR Sovereign Risk Assessment categorized Ghana within the high risk of debt default category. with countries like Argentina, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and that they are worried that we may not be able to pay our debt. So the economy already is in a precarious situation. The little we are generating, if we can even call it little, is going into personal pockets. We are losing it to corruption. So we must be committed at blocking the loopholes. And you see something, I've been looking at the numbers and what we do and where our priorities are. You know, another pet subject of mine is the office of the president in terms of the staffing. I've been seeking compliance of the Presidential Office Act 1993, Act 463. It takes a lot of hassle, but eventually the president will submit the report. The latest one submitted to Parliament under the hand of the president, which was laid only last week. We are able to appoint all kinds of amorphous, positions. A church relations manager, a diaspora church mobilization officer, overseer of the National Cathedral. We have, if you come to page 24 of this report, we have a youth ambassador for diaspora affairs, even though we have embassies, more than 60 embassies across the length and breadth of this world. And the fiscal implication of this, the financial burden, I have here the budget of 2020 and 2021. If you compare wages and salaries for 2020 at the Office of Government Machinery, it was 136.2 million. I'm reading from page 234 of the 2020 budget, Appendix 7, MDA staff establishment and costs. So, Office of Government Machinery, 136.2 million Ghana cedis. Due to all of these amorphous appointments in 2021, it has shot up to 823,880,668. So from 136 to 823. So anybody should tell me that we can't find money for the Office of the Special Prosecutor. This is an increase of 508%.
Is it not the case that this amount includes the NAPCO and the rest because they come under the presidency?
It was the same in 2020.
Okay.
But even that it does not include, because if you look at Appendix 6, it's a different Appendix 6, the cost of government flagship programs. You have NAPCO, they are counted separately.
Okay.
They are 672 million. So that's a whole different arrangement. So
no, but how is that explained from 120 to 800, 130 to 820?
I have been asking questions, and fortunately the Speaker of Parliament has referred this report to the Finance Committee. And you see, it keeps going up. So the kinds of things we find money for when you go through government finances, and we'll be coming to other matters.
What did you mention? The overseer of
overseer of the National Cathedral,
church relations, and then diaspora church something.
Yes.
Okay.
Are you aware that I thought that Eugene Ahin was the only communications director? I go through this list and I see that apparently we have 3 other communication directors. Frank J. Chum, Director of Communications. Awudu Moro Kabori, Director of Communications. Alexander Jedu. No, it's Ali Adams, Director of Communications. Then we have 5 Deputy Director of Communications. Maxwell Asante, Kofi Bahai Jepon, Taminu Ahassan, Yusuf Rohil Akumeni, Kofi Christopher Atiso. Then we have 6 technical assistants for communications over here, technical communications assistants, 6 of them. On top of this, we have a communication consultant, Mr. Kweku Sechiado. You can't take his expertise away from him. But on top of him also, you have the Honorable Oboshisai Kofi, who I have enormous respect for, who is also here as communications advisor, presidential advisor on media, who also then has a technical director to the advisor to the president. I mean, it's duplications, replications, and all of that. So I will not take excuses.
This is how to take care of the boys, the party people. Is
well,
that what
yeah, it appears so. So this is 995 in all.
Okay.
Political appointees are 337.
How do you relate that to the OSP's office needing retooling and all that?
When the OSP is asking for a board, it's asking for financial clearance from the Ministry of Finance to recruit. Why is it not being supported? Why are those approvals not coming? He has not been able to employ all the people he needs in the office. And Parliament, we have been raising this consistently. Only last week, the Honorable Bernard Ahiafo, who ranks on the committee, has been calling on government to meet its obligations. Even we cut their what they really need. We cut it by more than 70%. And even that, they don't get it. So you see, we are either committed to fighting corruption or not. So I am saying that I don't buy the excuses about tough financial times and all of that, because we are finding money for all of this. Church relations manager, church mobilization officer of the diaspora. I don't know when God called Ghana to mobilize all the churches in the diaspora. And it's coming at huge fiscal burden. And then you juxtapose that with what Imani is reporting, how much we are losing. Remember the Auditor General's report, 2020, from 2016 to 2020, how much we lost? Over 12 billion cedis. So you see, you should have this discussion within the context of how much we are losing. If you consider how much we are losing and what that money can do.
I'm hoping that the OSP could pluck a quarter or half of this.
Even just a quarter. Even just a quarter, we'll be able to probably solve our flooding challenges.
Professor PJ, would you say that the OSPs, he's not back? Okay, so let me ask this to Samuel Kujoto. Would you say this is the fear that when the OSP gets what it wants, that is the infrastructure that it is asking for, building a cybersecurity and forensic lab, among others. From where we understand, the OSP, what it asks for the 1 billion is only for recurrent expenditure. And it needs, if you like, servers to monitor transactions at the Bank of Ghana, for example. Do you think that it will be deliberate to stop them from wanting to monitor transactions at the Bank of Ghana, at the ports? You know, that if they are doing all of these things, it may not help those, you know, because they will see how money is moving. And we have used the Ejeni Mboateng example, where money is hitting accounts that I'm a lawyer, I've defended people, I've gone to court to ask the court to unfreeze accounts, and you ask how much money came into it. Just small amount of money in dollars, but because this ordinary person doesn't have a history of such an amount coming into the account, they flag it. So you ask the question, how was it possible that a man with less than 40,000 accumulates in excess of 40 million?
41 million.
Yes, in 3 years, setting up companies in 3 months, and you're all getting all the contracts, and this is not flagged. From what we know, they were flagged by the bank officials, but it appears those who were supposed to hold them in check didn't do anything. So is there a suspicion that if the OSP comes in, it can track all of these things and stop it? So that's why it's not being helped?
Something. I mean, this should be obvious. You see, let's be honest around this table. We all know that corruption has its beneficiaries, and corruption has.
And I meant to say non-recurrent expenditure,
yes,
and I said recurrent, not recurrent. Yeah.
And corruption has people in high places who aid it because they benefit from it. And corruption, as we know, is very sophisticated crime. And those who benefit from it also put in place systems. You see, as we are trying to, create an OSP, and the OSP wants to put in place some systems and all of that, those who benefit from corruption are seeking to go ahead. And they are always a step ahead, unless there is the political will and there is the genuine commitment to fight the rot and to punish those who must be punished. So you see, it's a matter of leadership. It's a matter of priority. It is a matter of meaning what we say. When we say that we'll protect the public purse, when we say that we will make corruption a high risk, if you were making something high risk, then let's see the results. Let's see the deterrence.
Right.
And that's what
having heard across the board, Panka, what would you say? That the president may have lost the priority that initially he put on the OSP. The president is superintending, changing our laws to make corruption a high risk, even though we know that was already there. But you needed to do, and he has done all of these things. Why will he not do the things the OSP needs?
Yeah, that's why I have very serious reservations at the frightening levels of conclusions that are being drawn across the table. And I say so because, you see, he is a member of parliament. I was with him in parliament. And I can assure you that not in the history of this country have we had any legislation to fight corruption than this government. Not in the history of this country.
But legislation is not enough. That's
and you see, and it is for the institutions to carry out these things effectively, to implement the laws effectively for results. OSP is one. And we had the Witness Protection Act. We had the Right to Information Act. All these. And then the Governance Act. All these under the government of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. These are all meant to deepen governance and fight corruption. Now it is for those institutions and the personalities there to carry out their mandate as required by law to fight corruption. No one individual sitting there as president can fight corruption without institutional fight against the system. But there is this perception or this argument that is being canvassed every day, which I met a colleague of mine at another station, and I drew his attention to something. This figure that is being bandied around, which frightened you, and you almost froze under your feet, 13 billion that he mentioned. I've discussed this issue at length with one of his colleagues on another platform. You see, most of these things, the information they got were from the Auditor General's report over the period. And mind you, financial irregularities identified by the Auditor General does not equate to corruption. I think we have to be very careful. Otherwise, we will get it wrong. Now, the Auditor General they categorize all those irregularities. Some of them are based on, for example, that some money was set aside to purchase maybe air conditioners. It didn't happen. The money was used to purchase maybe laptops. That's an irregularity. But it's not corruption. So all those things are lumped to get this 13 billion. But the perception people are canvassing out there is as though that 13 billion is money that was stolen.
Okay. I think that's a good
we have to clarify this and be very careful. Otherwise, we will think that 13 billion was money that a group of people stole.
People are justified in questioning. People are justified in questioning the president or the government's priority to the OSP. Are they not?
We're going there. As I indicated at the beginning, when you gave me the opportunity to argue on this matter or make my presentation, I stated to you that this is a man who made the promise. He came into office, carried through, sent it to parliament. It was passed into law. He allocated an office to the OSP. It wasn't sufficient. A state institution puts up a magnificent edifice. The president himself intervenes and says, OSP, go and occupy that place because you are a priority institution.
It's actually a 10-story building.
Yes. So, you see, we may say that it is not enough, but to say that nothing has been done would be wrong. And I have stated that the commitment in terms of legislation and in terms of the physical infrastructure and the support to the OSP. Look, let me give you an example. I was Deputy Attorney General for 4 years. Sam, even the Attorney General, that office, very huge office with other allied agencies and etc. Our budget is sometimes even less than what the Special Prosecutor is asking for. The Attorney General with 10 regional...
The Special Prosecutor... The Special Prosecutor, Office of Special Prosecutor is a new arrangement.
Yes, but
it will need more than you need.
I agree.
To set it up.
I agree. I've said that I agree. But I'm saying that the Attorney General's office, which has 16 offices across the country, okay, with staff strength of running over 1,000, etc., and other things that they need to actually fight corruption also and fight crime and graft, we get less than this amount released to us.
6 months into the year.
No.
6 months into the year. Attorney General, haven't you received your budget or some of it? The 6 million that has been released by the Finance Ministry, it's not yet, with the OSP.
No,
That's not good enough.
You see, the point is this. Even at the beginning, the figures keep changing, eh? And that's even what, at the beginning, it was an admission on this table by your good self that it was 10 million.
Yes.
And then
I said our
again.
information about how much the finance ministry has released is 10 million. That's what I had said earlier.
Generally.
And I came to now say with emphatically, that the amount that has been released is actually 6 million, but that amount has actually, as we speak, not hit the account
yet.
I
have indicated to you
how
that
it's supposed to work.
You see, we have hundreds of state institutions across the country, all needing funding and competing for funding. The OSP is a priority, no doubt about it. But when you are running a system where you are constrained financially to be able to satisfy all, the little that you have, you squeeze it in a manner that you are able to meet them in a certain way for them to be able to effectively function and carry out their mandate as required by law. That's what I have stated. Look, I'm just giving you, let me digress a little. The Office of Attorney General.
We have very little time. I need to go to Kuja PJ for the final comment, and then we'll go to a break and return.
Samson, I have said, and I want to state again, that my former colleague, who is now the boss of the Aegis department, is a great personality. Look, within a space of 1.5 years, through his lobbying and his relationship with government, the way he's been able to work, he's managed to procure enough vehicles for all regional offices of the Office of Attorney General.
And we saw that.
Yes, he did. And then the law office, which has been a dream. Go and see how beautifully it is coming up.
The special prosecutor should not be going around begging for funding.
If we have, look,
he should not be doing that. The special prosecutor should not be doing that.
Absolutely.
The special prosecutor is not a party person.
Yes, exactly. I know. Exactly. I know he is an independent person who is supposed to carry out his mandate in compliance with the Act. But and that's the reason actually for the creation of that office, as you know, because it was intelligently carved out of Article 88 in order to satisfy that.
All right.
But I just want to plead that when we are making general statements such as the 13 billion issue, we shouldn't create the impression that it's stolen money.
Okay, thank you very much. Professor PJ, the question I was asking earlier when we lost you was whether you thought that in the circumstances that we find ourselves about COVID, about Ukraine and the rest of them, the 1 billion that it needs for the things it needs to do, cyber security installations, get monitors so that it can also equally monitor, the Bank of Ghana, monitor the ports so that when money is coming in, he knows who must explain what you are getting and the rest of them. In this time, should he not be agreeing to just join these institutions that have them, rather than wanting an independent one?
Yes, in a way, we can say so, because as I already indicated, corruption is interconnected with some other crimes and other activities, whether listed or illicit. So corruption is connected to, for example, money laundering. It is connected to racketeering, fraud, and 419 activities, cybercrime, and so on. And so one can say that they can join hands and work together. But I think that the second option is preferable, that the OSP is set up as an independent body, and it has its own lab and it has its own investigations and so on, while still networking with financial and intelligence center and so on, because of the fact that their works are connected, working with EOCO and the rest. But it has to have that independence. And if it also should link up with or rely on EOCO and the rest, they already have their own challenges and stumbling blocks and inefficiencies. And so it is going to add to that inefficiency and make the office of the OSP not very effective in performing its mandate. So if it has its own money, it can do better. And I think that in spite of COVID and the challenges we are facing, the office is a sort of investment, actually, because it's going to do two main things. One, it is preventing corruption and saving us money. And two, it is helping to reclaim money that have been stolen from the coffers of the country, so that we can get back a lot of the money that the PAC every year come out and say that we lost so much and there's corruption here, there's graft there, and so on. So if we put money into OSP, it is not money being wasted. And I think that is, in terms of priority, that is where the government should pay attention to. And that will certainly be a game changer in how we amass the fortunes of this country. Because corruption is pervasive, it has become pervasive, and it is spreading its tentacles day in and day out. And so if the office is working effectively, it can, in the end, deal with corruption and also deal with a governance system that we have, because people are infiltrating government. And governance is becoming a hybrid form of governance, with clientelism and so on coming into play. And in the end, we are moving towards a failed state situation, or what is happening in South Africa. We call it,
state capture.
What's the word?
State capture.
State capture?
State capture, that's the word, yeah. So, and so we need to be careful about it, because that is, unfortunately, the direction we are heading to if we don't tackle corruption very seriously.
All right. Okay, thank you very much, Professor Kojo Appiah-Gyechia. We will take a break here, and when we return, we will see how we quickly can deal with the question of Parliament's concern about unapproved monies being spent on the National Cathedral, and then see how we can also, as it were, help in the fight between the IGP and the British High Commissioner to Ghana, and the what the comments will be about the bizarre request for a demonstration with private armed security, so to speak. A couple of comments. Ken says that, Penka, if you are saying that there is money used to purchase something else rather than what is originally meant for, is not corruption, you must ask yourself, what is the motivation for purchasing another thing rather than what the money was originally used, was originally earmarked for? So this is substantially has a relationship with corruption. So we should pay attention to that. Kojo says that clearly it's not correct that the president is in charge of appointing the members of the board. All the institutions are nominating institutions, and that is clear in Section 5. Everyone is nominated. Even the OSP is a rep. When the president says free HSS is major priority, he has moved heaven and earth to pursue it. So why has he taken this approach about corruption? When he says that the cathedral is a priority among priorities, he's advancing far in excess, more than double what he is giving to the OSP. How do you explain that? We'll be right back.